Welcome back to another Mackem in the Middle podcast after another Sunderland game, this time in the Cup, and it's not the Pizza Cup, it is a fairly respectable one, the Carabao Cup, in which we did win last night on penalties against Championship side QPR, who I believe are 7th in the division, I think it is, just behind 6th on goal difference. And I'm joined by Kyle again and John once again. And John, I suppose it comes as a bit more of a surprise to win that game and put in such a good performance after the defeat on Saturday.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think the thing with Johnson, I think he said it yesterday. It's about bouncing back, and keeping that mentality. In years gone by, managers gone by, and the philosophy of the club is maybe just to throw the cups. With Johnson, it's all right. We lost the weekend; it was disappointing. But it's good to quickly bounce back from that. We've heard the streaky Lee, thing that keeps getting brought up, but he keeps putting that to bed quickly with results. Doesn't matter if it's in the Pizza Cup or in the league or the Carabao Cup as last night. It's about you tell me the whole of the club on Saturday after we lost to Charlton. Don't get me wrong, I was absolutely fuming with the result, absolutely fuming. But then you ask any Sunderland fan today, they're absolutely buzzing. I certainly know I am, and I've seen a lot of the reaction on social media. So it's good. It's good to bounce back, and like you say, for a team like that I'm sure we'll get into the game and statistics and all, but I think we matched them. Especially the highlight for me was we did have a lot of changes in there. It wasn't our full strength team.
Yeah.
And
I think it was 4 players in that starting 11. I think that would usually start for us. Obviously Winchester, Stewart, Neil, and there was one more as well. I think. Was there one more?
Might have been Diaku, maybe. He's been obviously starting the past weeks. But yeah, like you say, do you know what I mean? For us to change our squad, and again, years gone by, I keep moaning about it, but years gone by, changing anyone in the squad, it's just we'll just slot them there. There's been no thought process, and it just seems at the moment, we're doing the business in these cups with, there must be a big philosophy at the club, and it may be just getting through and with the right players, because we're playing. We're still playing good football to a good standard, against very good opposition. Let's not kid ourselves. We've just lost to what's perceived as a poor Charlton side, and then we're going up a team, who's very, very close to, to having a good chance at a crack at the Premier League. So that I think that sort of thing's got to be applauded.
Yeah, and obviously, kind of we spoke about this game a little bit after the Charlton defeat, and we were saying about would you play a strong team? Would you? Play some of the cup players, as I suppose it is at the minute. And obviously we did go for majority of I know Lee Johnson doesn't like to say it, but I will, a second team, as you would. The likes of, Gooch is technically first team player, hasn't started too much this season. Hume, second choice left back, right, Alves, Burge as well. And we said about the streakiness of Johnson and how if this is that so-called streakiness of, where we're going to lose one every so often, just how well we are at the minute, long may this go on, just how well we are bouncing back from a defeat and then not just going back to the performance that we used to, but even upping that performance in the next game.
Right, and just to clarify, if all my comments about what I said on the last pod about we shouldn't take this seriously, we should just basically throw it, I was 100% wrong. Because just seeing, and I think the importance of these, there are certain cups, and don't get me wrong, like the Mansfield and Pizza Cup and stuff. It's like, okay, that might, maybe it's probably my naivety as a relatively newer fan to English football, like knowing there's a lot of different cups going on sometimes at the same time. So maybe that's what it is, because this one is definitely holds a little bit more stature to it. And anytime you can play against tougher competition, especially with the squad that we have, you can just see how much it means to them. And I think what's important with this type of cup run, and it's going to bleed into the league as well, as long as we can avoid injuries, which I'm sure we'll get to. But everyone on the squad now has to stay ready, right? No one can really be out of focus and say, oh, if I'm not in the starting 11, I'm not really going to care, because if you're not in the starting 11 for the league, you almost certainly will be playing in the League Cup against really tough competition. So everyone, like the likes of Pritchard, like even Alves and Lee Burge, who has just become one of my favorite players, just the way he's reacted to the season, and whether or not, the whole Hoffman thing, and that's probably something we'll discuss as well. But everyone has to stay ready. And I think that iron sharpens iron in that regard, because in training, you're going to be going up against somebody who may be on the second team, so to speak, in terms of the league, but they're going to be playing as if they're getting ready for that first team, because they will be on the first team for the next cup game and things like that. So it is a very good dynamic if you can balance it and if you have the depth to do it. And I think that's what the difference is. Not everyone has the depth to do it. We, fingers crossed, still have depth to do it. We have the talent to do it. And just like you said, the streakiness, maybe we're seeing a reverse streak where instead of it's a win and then a bunch of losses, it's a loss and then a bunch of wins. So
yeah.
you like the streakiness can go both ways, absolutely. So and maybe we'll hit some different patches here and there, but yeah, just right now when you see the squad reaction, the fans, it's everything really is culminating together this season to really make it a special one.
Yeah, and obviously you've got to take it on a game by game basis, John. But just looking at the cup run, since that is kind of the subject at the moment, you've beaten a Blackpool side, you've beaten a QPR side, albeit on penalties. You could say that Sunderland will go to them games and try and just not to lose, and go into the games as the underdogs, think we might catch them on the counter attack and nick a 1-0 win. But if you look at the two games against high opposition that had strong teams out in comparison to us as well, Sunderland haven't went there and matched them as such. Sunderland went there yesterday and could have easily won the game in the 90 minutes. Both teams had lots of chances. McGeady had one right at the end. I think their keeper, Dieng, was forced into quite a few saves. So it's not just a case of us going to QPR, for a day out, to see what we can do, see if we can hold out against them. We put a game towards them. Lee Johnson was spurring them on. You can see him from the sideline. They went there to try and win and ultimately did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and do you know what I mean? That's an ethos from the club. That's been lacking, for a long time. Why shouldn't we treat every game like we want to win? And it breeds confidence. The youngsters that are even involved, you could tell, it lifts them. It'll probably lift them to when they're going back into their respective, under 23s or under 18 games they play in. And with Johnson, at least it's not an empty promise. In years gone by, or you even see it with, even with them up the road and their little, I say cup run, they don't have a cup run, do they? But when they say, well, we've gone out to win the game, and so many managers will trot that out, but it's nice to see that our manager, he is saying that and he's backing it up, because we are doing it. It's not just, like you say, a day out to QPR, a day out to Blackpool, where, again, years gone by, we'd be in the Premier League and we'd be fighting, and we'd be saying, oh, this is a bit of a free hit for us because we're under so much pressure in the league. It's nice, it's nice that we are taking it seriously. It's nice, that it is actually working, and that, like I said, that comes from an ethos from the club. We shouldn't have to just, like I say, toss it off or. Don't get me wrong. There was a few players yesterday I didn't expect to play, as in Stuart and Neil. And when Stuart got smashed over, I was thinking, oh my God, Aidan O'Brien's going to be up front for 6 months. Because I thought he'd gone down and done his shoulder. But we've probably got away with that one. But if it's all going well and it's breeding confidence, and we are, we're winning. What would you say, at 85% of our games? If you do that, then we're going to have a really, really good season. We know league is the priority, and I think that does show in the selections. But again, as Carl alluded to, if you've got the squad, and we have got the squad finally to be able to do this, then why shouldn't we use it? And why shouldn't we have had the squad in the first place? So, again, it's another one of those things. It's a big thing from the top of the club, and it's nice to see it filter down. It's actually nice to see it working.
Yeah. Well, the team that started the game was definitely not the one I put on FanHub, so I did lose points for that. But it was Burge, Winchester, Alves, Wright, Hume, Unayan, Evans, Neil, Gooch, Diaku, and Stewart. Obviously, Gooch and Diaku both just recently back from injury. Diaku did pick up another knock, although I think Johnson said it was a contact one, so it shouldn't be a long-term one. But going into the game, Kyle, and kind of like the opening, I suppose, 15, 20 minutes, Sunderland started well. I think they had the first two real chances of the game, but this might have just been me, when you're watching the game in like the round of 16 or whatever it was, or, the quarter final, as Lee Burge seemed to think it was. Sunderland did seem a little bit nervous playing it out from the back at times. We did seem to lose the ball in some very silly and dangerous positions at the back.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm sure that just goes with a different back line, right? I mean, you have Burge who's going to sound different, who's going to deliver the ball differently. You got Alves who's still young, obviously Hume who's getting back into form. You got, right, so I mean it makes sense, but I think what's important is that we play the same way that we would if it was our normal starting 11, because that's just how you have to build that mentality where it doesn't matter who's in here. You're gonna this is the way Sunderland plays football. So moving forward, that I mean, you can't expect anything different. If we play out of the back with our starting 11, we play out of the back no matter who's back there, right? And that way it develops confidence, it develops a culture and a system that no matter who's in there, they know exactly what the game plan is. It's the same thing that they've watched the other players do. It's the same thing that they've done in practice. So you can't really expect anything different. Didn't always work, obviously, and I think QPR plays a very aggressive style for sure. But I think what's important there is that we got rid of the ball when it did get dicey enough, and we kept our shape and we didn't get caught out. I can't remember anything where a player snuck through and was wide open on goal. Maybe I'm forgetting one or two, but overall, I think we looked very well organized. Maybe we weren't as skillful on the ball, when playing out of the back, but we didn't make the critical mistake, which most teams who aren't good at playing out the back will make the mistake, and that's why they don't play out of the back anymore. So,
yeah. And one of the other things that we have talked about quite a bit on the podcast this season, John, and it's not just the goals that we've scored, but also the chances we've created. It's easy to say that, when you're at home against, a Cheltenham or whoever you're playing, but so many seasons in League One, our only kind of threat would come in, one situation. Last season, get the ball into the box, hope we score a header. But granted, we didn't score in the 90 minutes yesterday, but not just yesterday, but the games against Blackpool, the games in the league, the chances we're creating are just very varied, I suppose, as well. You've got Diaku running in behind. You've got Dan Neil, who I think had a very good game against, a championship side. I think Johnson said he's only played 13, 14 games in his senior career. So that's, it's another experience for him. But Dan Neil running through the team, good effort saved. We're creating so many different chances against a very, very good side.
Yeah, we are, and like you say, it's nice to see. Obviously, last season we know we were very, very one-dimensional, and even though the goals did come, we needed a lot more brought to our play. Hence, why Ross Stewart's been, sort of a revelation. And I touched on it a few weeks ago. You see him out. I think you saw him one time yesterday, Ross Stewart, and came right out onto the wing. And I was thinking, if he's not in the middle, who is? But when I looked over, there were still 2 or 3 players just about to enter the box. So you can tell that, okay, he who not be named has moved on, and we've got in, Ross Stewart as first choice. But he's brought so many more dynamics. And like you say, with Deaku, with Gooch, you bring Embleton onto the scene. We're scoring different goals. We're scoring different types of goals. The Embleton screamers from outside the box. The Dan Neil's driving runs and finishing. The goal we scored the other week in the Papa John's. It's we're getting balls across. We're getting people in the box, and it's again we keep going back to it. It's nothing revolutionary. Do you know what I mean? It's just stuff we've been starved of for for season upon season. We've been very one-dimensional. It was all about Josh Madger at one point. Then it was all trying to be about Greg a bit, and then it was Charlie Wyke. It was so one-dimensional. Whereas now, you can see people are stepping up to the plate, and anyone on that pitch can score. Winchester from right back is probably one of our top scorers. We can score from centre backs. From Flanagan, got the winner the other week at Gillingham. So, like you say, it's nice, and it's not a revolutionary thing. I think we've just been starved a bit. So when it does happen, I think we're all a bit mesmerised by it.
Yeah, and obviously, Kyle, it is now into the quarterfinals. Obviously, I think the draw's on Saturday, which is a weird time for the draw. I presumed it would have been tonight, but it's not. It's on Saturday. There's still some obviously big teams left in. Your Liverpool who are playing tonight, your Chelsea's, your Arsenal's. Although Johnson didn't seem too keen on calling them a big club yesterday, which I don't think I'd argue with currently. But do you change your minds now? Do we go for this? In the quarterfinal, we've beaten 2 championship opposition. You've beaten a promotion rival in Wigan away from home as well in the cup. It's 4 away games, 4 away wins. Or again, do you still think that we need to keep certain players fit? Do you still play Stewart in these games?
Yeah, I would say so, because especially I think in the game last night, if Stewart is the striker who we think he is, because we're looking not only at how good he is this season, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, if all goes well, we go up to the championship, he's going to have to, be able to produce at a higher level as well. And there's no better way to test that than in games like this. So I think Stewart is one that would definitely continue to start. I think yesterday some of the injuries kind of forced Johnson's hand, especially with Hume going down, right? I don't think Sirkin honestly would have played yesterday. And maybe Alves maybe would have even stayed on there as well a little bit longer. But I think Johnson saw he got to like the 70th or 75th minute or whatever and was like, well, if I can shore things up here, we have a chance. So there's a lot that went into that. But yeah, I think especially no matter who we face in the next round, it's completely house money. I mean, all you have to do is throw a team out there and say, hey, just go after it, right? I think the fans are going to be proud regardless. But yeah, I think the likes of Stewart would still start. I'd imagine Gooch and Diaku, those types of players, because I think those players that we brought in with the idea that, hey, not only can these guys do really well in League One, but we see them as potential championship players as well. And this is the only way you're going to be able to tell that, So it'll be tough, but yeah, I think we've made it this far. You might as well go for it. You never know what can happen because just imagine even if you go into like extra time or PKs against somebody like Arsenal or Chelsea, or even that alone would be such a success, and really a great showcase for Lee Johnson to show these Premier League clubs like, hey, you got any more of those youth players, that you want to send our way? Because look what I'm doing with them, right? So Johnson is approaching this in the perfect way, and he's got to be loving it. And same with Speakman and the rest, who are like, hey, now we can showcase to English football again, like we can be that destination for as we continue our climb up. Look at our structure, look at our organization, things like that.
I suppose the only downside of being in the quarterfinals and having the likes of Liverpool and Man City still in it is Dan Neil still hasn't signed a new contract, and they'll get a front row seat to watch him.
I know. Well, yeah, you just hope that yeah, I don't know. Money talks. That's all. As we saw with Elliot Dickman, I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but if the likes of Newcastle and their dirty money get anywhere near our clean Dan Neil, then I'm going to have to. I don't know what I can't do anything, but I know what you're saying. I agree. I want him to sign the contract.
Yeah. Well, ultimately it was 0-0 after 90. I think it was 94 minutes. I think it was, but there was obviously one big incident in the game, John. And when I watched it on the stream, Charlie Austin looked a mile offside originally, like as the ball went in. I was thinking, is he not offside? The flag went up for offside. I was thinking, yeah, that's probably the right decision. I've seen the replay, and then I was like, how the hell have they given that as offside? And then I remembered the rule, and I was like, actually, if he's behind Burge, he is offside. But then I remembered that he wasn't behind Burge, so he wasn't offside. So it was kind of back and forth. But my understanding on the rule, right? So you've got, I think it was Lee Burge, and then Dennis Sirkin was behind him, wasn't it? I think it was. Dennis Sirkin and Lee Burge effectively swap positions in that instance. So Lee Burge is classed as the last man. Dennis Sirkin doesn't really have any impact on the offside lines. The offside line's based off Lee Burge for that incident, which inside Charlie Austin would be onside because he was in front of him. The other thing that people were saying was offside was the initial cross that went into the box. Sunderland, I think it was Luke O'Nien, headed it away. QPR player came from an offside position to get the ball. People were saying that is why it went for offside, which again isn't the case, because if a defending player makes a deliberate play to play the ball, then anyone offside is automatically played onside. So, moral of the story is, he was definitely onside. There was nothing wrong with that goal whatsoever. Got away with a handball as well, if you've seen it, that Sirkin definitely handled it. But it's about time we got on the end of a receiving. We got on the receiving end of a terrible decision, John.
Yeah, I've probably seen about 15,000 takes on it.
Yeah.
And obviously you probably described it quite well. I think ultimately we have maybe got away with one. I can only think there's been some miscommunication with the linesman, and when the ball does come in first and the guy is coming back from an offside position to win the ball, I don't know if the linesman then puts his flag up or waits until then the goal is scored and then puts his flag up. Obviously, that's how they do it in the Premier League with the VAR. I can only think that he's gone for, because you're supposed to let the play go on, and then at the end of the passage of play, when the goal comes, then he will put his flag up and say, player A was offside in the build-up at that point, and then it goes back to obviously that point. That's the only thing I can think of. But I've heard a lot of different stories. The only thing I can think of is we've maybe just got away with one. I'm not quite sure. Are you talking about the Sirkin handball when the guy actually shoots and it
Adoma
hits him?
hits Sturgeon, hits Austin.
Yeah. Because I'd be
I think
raging
again
that
that comes down to when they've actually given offside. Because if they've given it offside on Charlie Austin, then the handball comes before the offside, so it would be a handball, it would be a penalty. But if they've given penalty before Adoma takes the shot, then the handball is irrelevant because he's already offside. But the other thing that I was thinking is kind of along the same lines as you is if the linesman's flagged late for the original player coming back from an offside position, because he's checked with the referee if the Sunderland defender has made a deliberate attempt to play the ball or whether he was somewhat obstructed by the defender. Because I haven't seen too many angles of it, but that's what a few people were thinking. I think it was Luke O'Nien that headed it out. I'm not entirely sure on that. But, if the defenders ran past him, then as he's about to head it, then he's technically interfering with play. And then the linesman might not put his flag up until the referee said, yeah, he was interfering with play. Was he offside? Yes, well, put your flag up. I'm not really sure on that one, but, Kyle, it's just one of those in football, isn't it? Some will go against you, some will go for you. And there seems to be a lot of people that still question the rule. And I mean, there's so many rules that I didn't even know existed about offside that I'm now somewhat aware of. It's just a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that there's so much even just deliberation there, for one, the whole thing looked weird. So I don't blame the sideline ref or even the center ref. Like that whole sequence was just kind of, a little off the rails. So, it just looked weird.
It's one of them. It's one of them for me where I think if you get the referees at the end of a game to do an interview and say like, we made this decision based on, that would clear so much up in football. You'd find out why he's not given, go about the Charlton game, why he's not given a penalty on Stewart. Did he not see the handball? Was it too close? Was it this? Why is he given offside in that game? Who was offside? When was he offside? But there's just no communication whatsoever with referees nowadays, is there?
Right, no. And it's just funny because especially with football, like it is such a simple game, but the one caveat, like especially out here if you talk to fans who are kind of casual and things like that, the one constant is like, and I still don't understand the offsides rule. And I'm like, well, nobody does. It doesn't matter how long you've watched football, like nobody understands. I mean, there's obviously some clear-cut things here and there, but yeah, and that's just the mystifying thing about the sport is something like the offsides rule because it's so subjective and there's so many moving parts and it's like you said, it's about time we've got something that kind of went our way when it comes to refereeing decision. And if that's the type of refereeing we're going to get in the championship, then sign me up,
Yeah, absolutely. But it went to penalties and we've had some good penalty shootouts, John. Obviously the Man United one, in the same competition. Wouldn't mind following the same route as we did that season, albeit not take the lead and go 3-1 down to a cross. We've also had some poor penalty shootouts. Go back to Portsmouth. I was at that game and it wasn't the best train ride home. But ultimately, when it comes down to a penalty shootout, I think QPR scored 9. I think it was against Everton in the last round or the round before, whenever they played them. But no matter who you've got, you could have Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, the best players in the world. It's a lottery, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always a lottery. Obviously he hasn't played for a few weeks, but I don't know why. But I think because he saved 2 penalties, did he, last season, Burge? I just fancied it, and I think even Johnson said that. He said, like, you just fancy him to, we know he has his shortcomings in some of his aspects of his games, but, shot stopping and reactions, he's top quality. If he sorted out the other part of his game, we know he probably wouldn't be here. So, as soon as he sort of stepped up, I was quite fanciful. And if you save, probably one of the best strikers maybe in the Championship, and, he's done it in the Premiership as well in Charlie Austin, you save that, I know the rest of them, regardless of whether they've scored 9, are thinking, Jesus, if he saved Charlie's penalty, who would bang him in probably 9 times out of 10 in training, if they're, the rest of them are stepping up, you wouldn't have thought they're massive, confident penalty takers. And, all right, they slotted one away in the bottom corner, which could go either way. But the other two, dreadful penalties. You could tell that was more pressure than
Yep.
than technique, or anything like that. And to be fair to us, our penalties were spot on. I enjoyed the one that I can't think who scored it, but literally just smashed down. The keeper stayed there and he just smashed it through him.
Pritchard,
yeah.
Pritchard, I was happy with that. And I'm sure our fans, 2,700. I said yesterday on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? They've travelled the lengths and reps of the country on a Tuesday night for a cup game that a lot of people would toss off. And they've been massively rewarded for it. And obviously we've all seen the videos from yesterday. It's another little, I like to say, another little stitch in the rebuilding of putting this club back on the map. It's a long road, but it's just these little things that do add to it. And people have been talking about that night for ages. We won that penalty shootout. It was, and it was nice to see. It was nice to see the fans and Johnson come together at the end. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, and Kyle, obviously Burge did save one of the penalties, and I think QPR missed 2, or might have been 3 actually. I think it was 2 that missed, 1 was saved.
One saved and 2.
Yeah. But I've always said this, and I probably will always say this, but how do you miss the target from the penalty spot as a professional footballer? Like, I know you get some bad penalties, the keeper might save it, or you might hit the post or hit the bar, but some of their penalties were shocking, and they were nowhere near the goal. And I've always said you should always be able to hit the target from that range.
Right, and I think really what set the tone. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think what set the tone, I think John just mentioned it, is just that first save, I think, completely changed the whole dynamic, because he walked up there. I mean, it didn't look like the best taken PK, but as soon as Bird saves that, now the rest of those kickers are like, oh, well, shoot, we're going to have to try something a little bit different, Yeah. And there's one thing I don't think I can stand. I just cannot stand, and I promise I root for England whenever they're on like the national stage and things like that when the U.S. is not in it. But you saw it in the Euros as well. I hate when players complicate the run up, and I think Ross Stewart has my favorite PK of all time. Yeah. He just runs straight at it and just kicks the crap out of it like that. Yeah. That's obviously there's more skill than that, but like just kick it hard, because there's that short amount of space, and if you can just kick it fast enough. Like it's a 50-50 chance at that point. You're right. Just hit the target. Make the keeper have to make that right decision. And that's what I loved about our PK. McGeady has a little bit of flair on his, but it's McGeady, But yeah, with Pritchard and with Ross Stewart, they just run up and just smash it. And it's like, that's just so refreshing to see, because if the keeper makes a save, credit to him. That's such a hard thing to do. But if you miss it completely, then it's just like, well, what are you doing? Like, why are you out there? So it's just, and Johnson said that they train a lot on that. And they don't just throw it to like the last couple of minutes of practice. Like that is something that they, that they really train on, because you just never know, especially in our situation. Like there's multiple avenues that could lead us to like having to win games via PK to possibly even go up. Right. So you got to be ready. And I just love to see it. Love to see Lee Burge. And, now my question is, man, if let's say we're at Wembley, with promotion on the line and goes to PKs, do we make a last second sub Hoffman for Burge? That's my question.
Yeah. Have German goalkeepers always had a good record at saving penalties? Sure, Neuer's always been quite good at them, hasn't he?
I think Manuel Neuer's pretty good, and Oliver Kahn's got a good record as well.
Right. I guess has Hoffman had a PK against him yet? He's had the one, right, against
50-50 with
Gillingham. Yep. So who knows? I mean, I don't know. Would you make the substitution? I probably would. I don't know. I guess it depends how. But you could just see it the way Burge is playing all game. I was talking to the guys in the Discord. The way Burge played the game, it's like, I think he's going to do this. He's going to, all he has to do is make 1 or 2 saves, and as long as we make ours, it's game over. And
Sunderland Tim Krul, if you remember that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was him, right? Yeah,
Holland.
Who's it for? The Holland. Yep.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's just fun, and you just love to see it from Lee Burge, and good for him. Like we said, he maybe got kind of a raw deal with Hoffman coming in, because he has been very good for us. But to see him smile and see the crowd really just cheer his name or sing his name, like I was just like, man, that's cool. That was just really fun to watch.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about what you've just said there is just don't give us any more penalty shootouts because they're just not enjoyable.
Right.
Like
No, not at all.
this was
They're
to
the
get into
worst.
a quarter final of a cup, and it was stressful enough. You know, can you imagine a playoff final or a Carabao Cup final against a City or Liverpool? Goes to penalties. I just couldn't do it. But
Yeah.
player ratings, we'll get into them now. And I'm going to base this off the actual game and not the penalties. So Lee Burge is not getting a 10. But I'll start with Lee Burge and I'll start with John. And I said an 8 for Burge. You know, he made some good saves in the game. Obviously, it was a decent save for their onside, offside goal, but possibly should have parried that a little bit further out from goal. Ultimately, it didn't matter in the end. So I went with an 8 for Burge, John.
I'll probably bump him up to a 9, and I'm only going to do that because of I think we did win the tie because of him with his penalty save. So that's the only reason I would bump. I thought he was really good in goal, and fair play to him for stepping in when he doesn't really play that often. So yeah, I'll be generous and give him the 9.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I think a 9 is well warranted. If you take PKs in, I'd say 10, but I might just be still riding the excitement from yesterday. But no, he did exactly what he had to. He hasn't played a lot of football in these last couple of weeks, and he came in there. He's focused, and like you said, he was the reason we got out of there with a win. Absolutely.
Yeah. Winchester, I went with a 6 or 7, 6.5. Again, I think he was quite wasteful in possession for large parts of the first half, especially. I think he grew into the game a lot more in the second half and looked a lot more confident on the ball. And we've seen how confident he can be going forward. Obviously, nearly scored another goal from 30 yards that went just wide. So he definitely improved in the second half, but I'll say 6.5, and I'll go Kyle for this one first.
Yeah, I think a 7. Because a little bit of me, as good as he's been in League One, you just kind of wonder, is this sustainable if we do, go up and move him forward? And he did not look out of his depth at all playing up a level, right? And so I think that was important for him. Yeah, maybe 7. This might just be all rose tinted glasses, all of my all of my scores and stuff. But yeah, I thought he played well, and I think he handled the pressure well, and I think he's proving himself that he is good enough for obviously League One and good enough beyond if we do get lucky enough to go up.
Yeah, and John?
Yeah, I'll go with 7. We're not going to have everything our own way. And I thought he did his defensive side really well. Didn't see too much from him going forward, but you've got to expect that, away from home sometimes. So yeah, I'll go with 7.
Yeah. Alves, I want to give a 6 just because he reminded me of Virginie when he nearly scored that own goal. But if I try and forget that, I'll probably say 7. No, he won a lot in the air. There is at times he does kind of fill me with a little bit of worry when he's at the back, and I don't know why. But I don't know if that's just because I haven't seen him play often enough. But he won a lot of the headers that he had against two big strikers in Dykes, and I think Austin might have been on the pitch as well, but just before he went off. So I'll go with a 7, John.
Yeah, same. I got with 7. I thought he dealt with it really well, and he was stepping out with the ball. He was reading the game really well for such a young lad. And like you say, against Andre Gray, who's he's got a fairly decent Premier League record, and Lyndon Dykes, who's obviously keeping the seat warm in Scotland for Ross Stewart. So yeah, I thought he did really well considering he's sort of third, fourth choice centre back. Do you know what I mean?
And just on Lyndon Dykes, that's a shocking tattoo he's got, isn't it?
Oh, it's bizarre. Yeah, going up half his neck, his face.
That's easily worse than Edison's, isn't it? Like completely off topic, but that's a shocking tattoo. Anyway, what for you, Alves, Kyle?
Yeah, I think 7, and I think if I'm analyzing things correctly, he reminds me a lot of Tom Flanagan, and I'm sure they probably look at the data aspect of just the physical aspects, like his height, kind of his length, the way he plays, reminds me a lot of Flanagan. So in my mind, I'm like, well, he's either there for depth, obviously, so we can continue to play the same if Flanagan were to ever go down, or if we go up, maybe. Well, I guess he's on loan, right? This season. But yeah, he reminded me a lot of Tom Flanagan, which the way Flanagan's played this season, like that's a very good compliment. But yeah, I agree. There were a few times where he was really eager to go head that ball, and sometimes he did get pulled a little far out of position. He won the header, which is good, but if that header goes awry at all, it's a wide open lane behind him type of thing. So he's got confidence though. So that's never a bad thing in a center back to have confidence. So yeah, I think 7. I think he played really well. I think he the whole back line kept their shape really well.
Yeah. Bailey Wright went with a 7 as well. Defended well, didn't do anything silly like he has done a few times this season. Just kept it simple, defended well, used his strength well. The only thing that I just don't like about Bailey Wright is, how we kept playing out from the back, and Bailey Wright kept getting on the ball. And I think there was one point he did 3 Cruyff turns in his own 6-yard box, which, at 0-0 with 20-30 minutes to go, I was just thinking this is recipe for disaster. It wasn't, luckily, but that did kind of increase my heart rate a little bit. But yeah, I went with a 7, Kyle.
Yeah, we're going to be agreeing a lot, and I think his biggest attribute was his leadership last night, and just he kept that back line, who they're all kind of new, like that line, unless they all train together and they kind of have it set up that way. But I think he commanded his line really well. No one's really caught out. Like I said, everybody seemed to be on the same page. There was never somebody keeping the rest of the team on onside or things like that. So yeah, I think with that aspect, going into a very tough environment, a level that he's played a lot of football at, so it's not like that's uncommon to him. I think he went in there and did very admirably. So yeah, 7 as well.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, same, gone with 7. I thought it was really good, to be fair. Kept, I don't think their strikers really did anything. They were sort of limited to 1 or 2 chances each. But yeah, I thought it was, again, like because he's, third and fourth choice centre back. I thought he did a right signing in there. Yeah, I was quite impressed. If we're going to be playing the ball out, I'd still expect him to come in and, we know there's times to go long. But, if that's the philosophy and we're trying to teach the youngsters that's the way forward as well, then, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And like we did in the game, I'm going to make a substitute in the player ratings, and I'm going to say Dennis Serkin will give a rating instead of Hume, because he did go off fairly early in the game with an injury. So Dennis Serkin, I went with a 7 when he came on. Like Kyle said, I don't think he really was going to have any involvement in the game, and again was kind of just there in case something did happen. And luckily he was, because something did happen to Hume. Again, like I said earlier, just a contact injury, I think, so nothing too serious. But I might be in the minority, but I think Serkin might be the best signing we've made this season. I think, like I say, he gets better every game. This is his first game against a championship side, like it is against many of the players we have. Haven't played too much senior football. This is the kind of the next step up for them, and he didn't look out of place at all. You look confident on the ball, good defensively, good physically. So I've went with a 7, John.
I've actually gone with 6, and I'll probably only go down with 6. I think maybe I'm judging him because of what we get on the other side with Winchester. I'd maybe like to see a little bit more end product going forward. That's probably me being a little hypercritical, because like you say, he's come on really well since his debut, and obviously, like Carl said, he probably wasn't expecting to play either, and give Hume the full game. But yeah, I'd just like to see just a little bit more going forward. But defensively, no problem at all. I think he's absolutely solid.
Yeah, Kyle?
Yeah, and I think I think Hume did play pretty well, but it's just that is just Hume, right? We see some flashes and then an injury hits. So, we just hope, we need him for depth, obviously. And I think Serkin plays very, very similar to Hume, but he's just about, what, 5 years younger, so 5 or 6 years younger. So you can just see just the way he's built and the way he can play. I agree. I think it's a really good signing. And the only thing that worries me now is that buyback clause from Tottenham.
Yeah.
So let's see. I mean, regardless, we'll get a nice little payday, right? I think we get we'd get a little bit of money back, but yeah, he's like you said, getting better every game. So I'd say it's a 6 as well, just because he was kind of involved in what was almost a goal. What probably should have been a goal, but it's a 6.
Look, 9, I'll say a 7. Obviously picked up a yellow card for a challenge which he didn't actually make any contact with the player. I'm almost positive that he didn't. And then I think it was probably Dykes in the second half made a very similar challenge a lot later. Advantage was played, but nothing actually came of that. He wasn't booked, so again that was a bit of inconsistency from refereeing again. But I'm not going to complain about refereeing this week. I think O'Nien, he battled well in the middle like he always does. He looked a lot more composed on the ball again in the second half as most of the team did. So yeah, I went with a 7, Kyle.
Yeah, yep. And I think he's come under a decent amount of criticism, from just weird, different pockets of Sunderland fans and stuff, which I don't know. I don't really know what else to expect, but he plays his ass off, really, right? He's just every single game he's out there. He's getting stuck into tackles. I think the midfield, honestly, like for the most part, was a little bit underutilized, but maybe that's just because QPR probably had us a little bit outmatched. But I think defensively, they like I've said before, never got caught out. Everybody always tracked back as well, and that's sometimes all you can ask for, right? Just especially in the late stages of the game, Luca 9 sprinting back, he's getting into tackles, and we didn't really make any really dumb fouls around the box. So yeah, I think he played really well. 7.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I've gone with 7. I thought he was good in there doing what he needs to do. Break up the play. And we're talking about a player who's, he's a League One player and he's playing against, a championship midfield. So, for him to not look any different, I was impressed. Probably would slightly, he did frustrate me, his touch and let him down and then he's gone in for the foul. I think he does clip him, but if you're saying he doesn't, I think he still gives the referee something to give, almost like the Embleton thing. He gives the referee, and it's early on. The referee's just going to think, well, if I book one from them, one for them, early on. That stamps out anything else throughout the rest of the game. He's not going to keep up that consistency. So I think maybe that just let him down. Whereas, in the second half, sometimes we know Luke O'Nien has got a professional foul in him waiting to, he's just going to smash somebody if they're on the counter attack. I think sometimes it just needs. He's almost giving his free smash a player on the way through, like he's giving that pass away almost sometimes just by letting him down, just by little indecisions. That's all. If he clears that up, and when we are under the cosh a little bit, which we may be in a few games, and he does have to take that tackle, we won't necessarily lose him to a second booking.
Yeah. Dan Neil, I went with a 6. I think I'll say, that run and shot that I alluded to a little bit earlier. It was good run, good shot. Possibly could have, kind of put in the corner a little bit more and possibly given us the lead, but probably a bit nitpicky, to be honest. But I think he gave the ball away a little bit too often, in dangerous positions as well. And again, it wasn't just him, especially in the first half. There was quite a few culprits for that, but I think a 6 is probably fair, and it wasn't a bad performance from Dan Neil at all. I think he's just capable of more, but again, it's the first time he's played against a top championship side. It's still his first season in senior football, so I'll say a 6, John.
Yeah, same. Gone with 6. Again, we've got to take into consideration. He's playing against a championship midfield, and I don't know if you noticed, but it seemed to me whenever he got the ball, there was maybe a bit of a plan to shut him down really, really quickly, as opposed to the other two. So teams are not stupid. He's still really, really young. He's probably he's not used to people targeting him, is he? Let's be honest. So we've got to expect that, and we're maybe only marking him down because of the standards he sets himself. But it's nothing to worry about, and I'm sure he'll step up on the next.
Yeah, and Kyle.
Right. If our 19-year-old midfielder who's only played 13 games of professional football comes out of a game against a championship side with a 6, I think we're doing all right. Yeah. So, and I think my only thing that I've noticed with Daniel, I don't know if it's a strategy thing or if it's just the way the other team's marking, or if it's just the endurance of a game like that. There's just long stretches where I'm like, Daniel hasn't touched the ball, and Daniel's probably our best player. Like he just needs to touch the ball. And so there's stretches for about 10 to 15 minutes where I'm like, okay, where's Daniel? So I don't know if it's just him kind of hanging back or what, but I noticed it in Charlton too, where it's like, it's just been too long since he's touched the ball. What's going on? So, but it's not all on him. So maybe that's just him having to know when to pick and choose, when to step up and when to sit back and things like that. But no, like I said, if we're getting a 6 out of him in a game like this, that's as good as gold.
Yeah. Corey Evans, I don't know. I think I probably went with a 6 purely because I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I don't think I noticed him as much which is probably meaning he had a better game than I'm giving him credit for. If you don't really notice defensive midfielder, but I'll say a 6, bordering 7. I don't think he did anything wrong as such, and no matter what game he plays, and he always seems very calm on the ball. And I think if he can stay fit, which is a very big if, it appears, he will have a big role to play in this season, not just in the cup, but in the league as well. So I'll say 6, Kyle. High
Yeah,
6.
and right, and I think you took the words that I was going to use as well. As I don't really remember him much, and sometimes it's just like the refs. If the ones that you don't notice are the ones who typically do the best. And I think with your defensive midfielder, if you're noticing him a little bit too much, it's either he's having a blinder of a game or an absolute terrible game. So yeah, I think 6 is the only thing I can do, because I couldn't tell you one moment that he did anything, but not for better or for worse. So yeah, I think 6 is fair.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I've gone for 6. Like you say, I didn't really notice him too much. If you come away with a clean sheet, albeit a lucky refereeing decision, I think you've still maybe got to give him credit, despite not really knowing any major points he's contributed to. So yeah, I'm happy for him to just go under the radar while Nuko and I battles. For the other side of the game. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that at 6.
Yeah. Gooch, I don't really know what to go with, but it's probably bordering between a 5 and a 6, to be honest. And I think the reason I'd say 5 is just because of how much he frustrates me at times. And there was one point in the game, he lost the ball like he does quite a lot when he's kind of, dithering on the ball, not sure what to do with it, wanting to beat his man more than once. He goes down looking for a foul, and to me, it just looked like he slipped. It was never a foul. He does his usual, complain to the referee, end up getting booked for it. And I think that's the one thing that annoys me the most about Gooch, is just he never seems capable of keeping his mouth shut over the smallest of things ever as well. But I think there was times he looked dangerous. We've seen him create more in similar games in the past, but I think he's capable of more. But again, just coming back from an injury, he's not going to be as sharp as he possibly could be in a few weeks' time. So I'll say a 6, John.
Yeah, same. I've gone with 6. I thought it was quite industrious. With very little sort of end product. But I think at the moment, that's the sort of person we've come to expect. I think he does bring something to the team. When he's not in the team, you do notice it, and then when he's back in the team, it's sort of who else can we bring in? It's just one of those conundrums in it. But I'm sure hopefully we get him, fighting fit, and with the competition for places, that might just spur him onto the player that we know he can be.
Yeah. Did he get double-figure goals in our first season?
I think he got like 11. Is either that or the second
10 or 11.
season. Yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah,
but anyway, Kyle.
When it Barnsley game was on fire that day when he absolutely tore him apart.
Yeah, because I think he at the start of the League One, I'm sure he was kind of one of our top scorer and one of the most players you could rely on to get a goal. And he's just, I think I said it before, since he had a kid, he just seemed to regress as well. Yeah. But anyway,
as a father as well, I can attest. I'm sure he hasn't been getting as much sleep.
Yeah.
No. So, but I do like Lyndon Gooch, and I think he was something that was missing. Did he play against Charlton? He didn't, right? Or am I?
He came on as a sub, I believe.
Came on as a sub. Yeah. I think though, especially his best use is those first 60 minutes of a game, because he's a great outlet. Him and Diaku both provided just great outlets. As soon as if we had a hard time playing out the back, or if we could just get it down those lanes, they would at least get the ball upfield, which is good. They're always good to beat at least one man, and he's able to get down there and just kind of tire out those defenders, which I think is the best attribute, unless we can get him scoring again, which I think it's just one of those things. Hopefully, as soon as he gets that first one from open play, it kind of spurs him on. But I think industrious was the perfect word to describe his performance. Just, gritty. He just runs out there, runs ragged a little bit, but he's physical. He's always tracking back when he can. But him being that outlet is something I think was missing in Charlton, because God bless Aidan O'Brien, but he's just got no pace. He's just got no pace. He's got great skill on the ball. If we could combine those two players, we'd be world class. But yeah, I think 6 is I think it's fair. And I just hope we can get a goal under his belt.
Yeah. Diaku again went with a 6. I think I love him as a person. His Instagram stories, and match days and everything. Just he seems to love to be here, and I love that in a player. I think his decision making at times yesterday was questionable. He had a good effort saved, or a good chance saved, I should say, by Dieng in the first half. Picked up a knock, and I think it is hard to kind of judge him at the moment because he's kind of in the team one game, out of the team the next. He's been fairly unlucky with injuries. Obviously, got one in the international break and then got a contact one yesterday. So I think after he's had a run a couple of games in the team, I think it would be a lot easier to judge him and see what he will bring. But I think he is going to be a good option to have. But I went with 6 yesterday, Kyle.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever seen a defender that he doesn't think he can beat, and I don't think he's ever seen a goal that he doesn't think he can score on, which I think is great to have. But the one that he did get blocked, I mean, he had Ross Stewart open for just it would have just been a tap in, and it's sometimes the confidence can be blinding, especially someone who's coming in here. I think he feels like he has something to prove. He's kind of out of his element a little bit. He wants to kind of make those plays, but I think as soon as he buys into the team game that we have set up, just saying, hey, let's just make that simple pass. But that goal could have also gone in, so you just don't know. But yeah, like I said, I love having him. I think he's a great player to have, and how we use him moving forward, I think it's gonna be interesting. Whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench, what suits him best, but that's up to Lee Johnson to decide. So yeah, I think he earned a 6 yesterday. I think he played hard.
Yeah, and John.
I've gone for 6. I thought just decision making maybe just a little bit suspect, but I think maybe he's just got to. Given that, he's still adapting. I think his goal when he scored the 4th the other day was a little bit like sort of stumbled on the goal as opposed to, knew what he wanted to do from the start. Yeah. But look, like Kyle said, that there's definitely a player there, and he's certainly one of the better players in the league. And if Johnson can sort of guide him in the right way, then like I said, we've got a hell of a player on. I think, but yeah, 6 for last night.
Yeah. And last but not least, Ross Stewart, who just had a very quiet game, I suppose. He's up against some very experienced defenders, some very, very big defenders as well. A lot of running again, just didn't really have too much service to kind of work on, especially in that first half. And I can't really remember him having any real chances on goal. Obviously, there was I think there was a cross from Diaku, which no one was really alive for. And then similarly from, I think it was McGeady in the second half. I think O'Brien missed the initial one. And then Ross Stewart was just kind of inches away at the back post. But I suppose I'll go with a 6 for Stewart, John.
Yeah, same. I thought he still did all right against the centre-backs. I think he pulled them out a few times that we like. We know he brings, a lot more to the team than goals. But yeah, he was in the right place at the right time in the box, just wasn't found. That's on the people making the delivery and not necessarily him. But yeah, it's 6 out of 10. I was quite surprised to see him start, to be fair. And like we said earlier, when we saw him go down on his shoulder, I was thinking, oh my God. But yeah, luckily got back up. I might actually even bump up to a 7 because of he got up and slotted his penalty away. So we know, if Aidan McGeady's not on the pitch, we know we can get up and take a penalty as well. So yeah, I'll knock him up to a 7.
Yeah. And Kyle, last but not least.
Yeah, I was 6 as well. If there's someone who knows exactly what he's supposed to do in this system, he just does it perfectly because he's always in the right spot, and it's just the delivery or it's good defense. But like you mentioned, the penalty is the reason I'm like, okay, that is a 7, because I just love the way he took that penalty, because like I said, I hate when people stutter and jump and twist and turn. It's just like, just take 10 yards
I think
of running.
Pogba's is the worst one up.
You said what?
Kind of just Pogba's is definitely the worst one up I've seen in a penalty shoot or penalty.
Yeah,
just takes about 10 minutes to get to the ball, isn't he?
Oh, there's just some horrible one. I think Bruno Fernandes. Well, I don't know. Anyway,
Jorginho.
Yeah. So just someone who just lines up 10 yards behind the ball.
Like a Strictly Come Dancing audition before you take the penalty.
It's awesome. Yep. So I love that he's just about no nonsense, no frills, no flair, no nonsense. Just and that's just how he plays. I love him. So 7 as well.
Very similar to Drogba.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Or Haaland, actually. Both of them. Anyway, Rotherham Saturday is the next game. Would you believe it? Another away game. It seems to be all we have at the moment. I think I don't know exactly, but I think that's 4 away games in the last 5 or 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly feels like that anyway. But away to Rotherham again, and then away to Sheffield on Tuesday. But the Rotherham game, I think it's fairly straightforward as to like kind of who'll start. I think Flanagan will come back in, Doyle will come back in, Serkin will almost definitely start since Hume is injured anyway. He likes of McGeady, he'll probably come back in, Stewart will start. But predictions for that one, John, start with you.
I think maybe Rotherham will probably. I think 4 points.
Just to let you know, their superstar striker is not able to play.
Yeah, well, they haven't got a superstar striker. I know that.
Will Grigg.
Even the one we've loaned. Yeah, I wouldn't even be worried. I'd expect if he did play, if he was allowed to play, obviously he's not. I'd expect someone to smash him anyway, and take a red card. But yeah, I'd probably take 4 points. I'll probably say maybe we'll beat Rotherham, and maybe we'll get a draw against Sheffield Wednesday. I'll happily take 6 points. Minimum 4. Anything else, and we riot.
We do. Kyle.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It's with these next 2 games, we're going to probably draw one and win one, and I couldn't tell you which one is going to happen. Rotherham's on a really good run of form, but just as we saw, like eventually those runs of form have to come to an end eventually. It'd be great if we could do that, take some points off these other competitors, which would be big. So, yeah, I'll go with a 2-1 win in this one, and probably a draw at Sheffield.
Draw at Sheffield. Fair enough. I'll be at both of them, and hopefully it won't be as bad drive back as some of the away games have been in the past few years. But appreciate you both coming on again, because that is the time we have for today at least. We will be back again on Sunday to talk about the Rotherham game, and once again on Wednesday to talk about the Sheffield Wednesday game. But until then, we'll see you later.
That's all, folks.